Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth and final session of the day, the conclusion of the first day of Dam Week Fall 2025. I hope you've been enjoying the session so far. You're walking away with kind of lots of ideas, take back to your team, some inspiration of how you can kind of utilize your dam a little bit better. Up next, we're going to be diving into a critical part of every dam journey, and that is the onboarding. This session is from launch to loyalty, how onboarding shapes DAM success. And we're going to be joined today by Lalo, a senior implementation manager here at Media Valley. And he has helped countless of organizations successfully roll out their dams and turn early adoption into long-term success. As always, the session will be recorded and will be available afterwards through a branded portal. I'll either get these out to you by the end of the day today, or else I'll just do the full damn week branded portal and send it out at the end of the day tomorrow. But please feel free to kind of drop in any questions or thoughts throughout the chat. We may not have a chance to do a live Q&A at the end, but I'll try and answer some questions throughout. And if I don't get to anybody's questions, myself or Layla will follow up afterwards. But yeah, anything you want to find out a bit more about the onboarding experience, about what's worked or what hasn't, just pop it into either the Q&A or into the chat, and we'll get back to you. And with that, I will hand it over to Layla.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Lalo. I am a senior implementation manager here at Media Valley. Thank you for joining me in today's session from launch to loyalty on how onboarding shapes the DAM success. I've had the pleasure of helping dozens of organizations through this journey, from chaos of scattered assets to clarity and a centralized, thriving dam. When we when we when we talk about onboarding, it's easy to think of it as a technical phase, but really onboarding is where DAM succeeds or fails. It's where you build momentum from forming habits and establishing trust into the platform. Today, we'll walk through why onboarding is a make or break moment, what the first 4 months look like, and how structured training and governance turn early excitement into long-term success. I've seen onboarding done both ways, one rushed, one deliberate, and I can tell you that the difference in adoption 6 months later is night and day. So let's start with the big picture on why every DAM story begins with a strong onboarding. Most DAM projects don't fail because of the software. They fail because of poor adoption. The early experience shapes the user's perception. When users log in for the first time, they're asking, is this going to help me out? Or is this just another tool that I have to manage? That's why first impressions matter. If they experience an early aha moment, like finding a photo instantly, they see the value of having a digital asset management software. But if it's like confusing or if it feels hard before they even see that value, adoption dips and they revert back to the old habits of scattered folders, disorganized systems and such. I've had a client tell me that they had a complicated folder structure with no search taxonomy able. And before the dam, they spent hours digging through shared drives. And now with Media Valley, it takes a matter of seconds. I've had another client told me that they were impressed with the ability that one asset could live in multiple locations without it being a duplicated file. That was their turning points. And I asked, like, think about your own teams. Like, how long does it take for a new user to experience value? The faster that happens, the faster the adoption sticks. And to me, this is why the very first few months matter the most. So the first 4 months matters the most, in my opinion. It's that make or break period. We break these 4 phases into launch, engagement, governance, and value. And each of these builds upon the last. During weeks 1 and 2, we begin the kickoff and overview sessions where we define the goals, talk about success metrics, and understand the team's use cases. We get all of the stakeholders involved in this session. During weeks 2 and 4, we talk about more about metadata and your structure. We define your taxonomy, we begin doing test uploads, and start building a scalable structure. During month 2, I train my admins and we do integration trainings. We will begin training these champions. We start finalizing workflows and begin connecting those integrations with other applications. During month 3 and 4, we roll out the platform and listen for feedback. We roll out this to the broader audience, monitor the usage, and receive any kind of feedback and make adjustments from there. Skipping steps early on creates confusion and it creates chaos. But if we build it out gradually, each of these phases reinforces the last. That rhythm builds confidence and trust. So one organization told me during month 4, their designers couldn't imagine life without Media Valet. That's the impact of a structured onboarding. And this is where it brings a critical truth. Implementation isn't really about going live fast, it's going live right. So in this slide right here, the data doesn't lie. Speed doesn't always equal satisfaction. Customers who begin to rush their go live period often end up redoing their metadata, retraining users, or just struggling with low usage. Going live right means alignment. It means clearer workflows, clean data, and also champions who could lead from within. Taking a few extra weeks up front prevents months of confusions down the road. I had a client that was super eager to go live within 4 weeks. We convinced them to spend 2 more weeks refining their metadata and their permissionings. So they ended up with 2 times more adoptions compared to similar projects. Once the foundation is set, this is about, once the foundation is set, the next phase is more about empowering people through training. In training, this is where the adoption takes root. Different users need different training styles. Admins, they configure the reports, they maintain the settings and such. Contributors, they contribute to uploading content, tagging, and approving workflows. Then we have our casual users. These are the ones that maintain, come into the library for searching for content, downloading, and sharing files. A successful onboarding trains not just the features, but on purpose. People need to see how the DAM fits into their day-to-day workflow. When they understand how it makes sense, their jobs become easier. A client of ours created internal DAM champions, and each department over here had one power user who became the local expert. The adoption skyrocketed because people had someone like this so they can trust and ask for help. I wanted to tell a quick story about onboarding a recently big university that was in the that was in the mid-size range. They had 15,000 students and multiple departments to manage their own creative content, from marketing, alumni relations, communications, and more. When we first started using implementing them, they had their challenge wasn't adoption, it was more on a challenge on alignment. Each department had their own assets, naming conventions, and workflows. The marketing team had a cloud drives. The athletic departments had their own photo archive. The communications department were storing their assets on shared servers. There was no internal communication or consistency. So when they implemented with Media Valet, the main point of contact, the main champion wanted to make one thing clear, that they needed everyone to feel like that this is their DAM and not just some other marketing tool. So we focus on their onboarding, and we separated the training paths for our admins, contributors, and our casual users. The admins were more driven into sessions on configuring the platform, metadata governance, and reporting. This helped take real ownership of the structure and permissions. Their contributor users were the photographers, designers, and student interns. These are the ones that were participating in hands-on workshops and focused on uploading content, tagging, and managing the approval workflow. Then, of course, we had our casual users, which were the faculty and alumni staff. We did a quick 15-minute training with them on how they could find and download approved assets so that it built enough confidence for them without seeming overwhelming. And from here, this is where things got interesting, where halfway through onboarding, we realized that these different departments had different search behaviors. They were looking assets by different terminologies that didn't align with ours. So we adjusted midstream and added new metadata fields so that they could quickly search for specific content for that specific department. Small pivots like this made huge differences. And within the first 90 days, we had a high percentage of active users adopting into Media Valet. These users, because they had a high adoption rate, these users began to train other users. Coaches were sending assets to their teams, and other departments started working more efficiently internally. By month 6, they weren't just using Media Valet, they were basically championing the platform. The team started creating the most top 10 most downloaded assets, and they added that into their newsletters. So this is not just a great example of how teaching DAM is. It's about designing and training around the people so that we can make it actually work. So I always ask the team, how many of you have identified internal champions within your organization? Training and teaching people on how to use a system and training them how to use a system right is crucial. Governance, the backbone of sustainable success. Right here, governments turns everything, governments turns order into confidence. It's defining the naming conventions, the permissionings, the workflows that makes a DAM scalable. Without governments, the system becomes just another shared drive. Clear governance ensures everyone plays by the same rules. It creates accountability and consistency. So no matter who uploads or downloads, the experience stays organized. We had one company that had 10 versions of every logo. And after proper implementation and setting rules and metadata standards, they finally had one single source of truth for that logo file. That's why order matters. And this is how it leads into efficient workflows that makes it run smoothly. A well-defined workflow turns the DAM into a productive engine. We upload, then we review, then we approve, then publish, then archive. Each step keeps content moving efficiently. Clear workflows prevents bottleneck and ensures that everyone knows their role. They're not just technical, they're they're cultural. Teams move faster when they trust the process. I work with a creative team that used to spend weeks on waiting for feedback, but after a workflow automation, approval took 24 hours. That's real measurable impact. Without workflows humming, the next step is showing that all this effort delivers value. So with value, it's measuring the return on investment early. This is where we measure success and tell a story for the ROI. We track metrics like active users, how many uploads and searches, and we equate that to time saved. But that data doesn't really inspire people. The stories that people tell inspire others. Every win is powerful. A marketing team that finds what they need instantly, a designer using existing content instead of recreating new content. Each small success builds momentum. I've had a client tell me that they saved thousands of dollars in duplicated asset creation within the first quarter. When they share that metric internally, the executives become damn advocates overnight, and they find that value. And of course, like, to reach the level of success, you do have to avoid common traps that derail onboarding. So avoiding these common onboarding roadblocks. The 5 common roadblocks that we've seen the most is skipping the governance setup, overloading users way too early, no clear ownership or accountability, ignoring early success metrics, and failing to celebrate wins. Each of these chip away the user confidence. That's why media valets includes milestone plans, a dedicated customer success manager, and a training library to keep customers guided and supported. This goal isn't just to launch, but it's to stay successful long term. By not having a clear set of paces, these onboarding roadblocks would set your onboarding experience to fail. So when onboarding is done right, it looks something like this. You begin to see the benefits of Media Valet. When a DAM is fully adopted, everything changes. Media Valet becomes a central, secure library that empowers users to be creative. They speed up collaboration, and they ensure brand consistency. Teams find assets instantly. They avoid duplicate files. They work from approved content. So it's not just about efficiency, it's about that confidence. When the DAM becomes more than just one software and becomes a part of the company's DNA. I've had a client tell me that I can't imagine going back on how we worked before having Media Valet. That's right there is a true adoption of the platform. So to wrap things up, and let's come back to where we all began, onboarding. To close onboarding is where adoption begins. It's where teams build trust, learn best practices, and start seeing the value of the platform. If you take one thing away from today, is that it's a great onboarding experience, creates loyal users, confident teams, and long-term success. Media Valley's goal is to make every customer not only apologize. Media Valley's goal is to make sure every customer not only launches but thrives, because when onboarding is done just right, the DAM becomes more than a tool. It becomes part of the culture it becomes part of the culture and the company's DNA. I do want to thank you for spending this time with me, and I would love to hear your onboarding stories, challenges, or wins. Thank you again.